Coast.
And thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. We'll return shortly after this break. And you're welcome back to The Pulse. Now we're doing a build-up to the World Environment Day. Well, a group of eco-conscious citizens is calling for collective action to ensure that Ghana's forest reserves are protected. This weekend, all like-minded eco-conscious individuals and organizations will mark the World Environment Day, targeted at pushing for transformative action on a global scale to celebrate, protect and restore our planet. As for this year's Only One Earth campaign, eco-conscious citizens say there's a need for urgent policy interventions to enhance government's green agenda. Let's speak to the national co-coordinator of the eco-conscious citizens, GH, Awula Serwah, who's joining us in studio. Awula, it's such a great time to be talking to you. What's the feeling like ahead of the World Environment Day?
Well, the feeling is that World Environment Day shouldn't be just a one-day affair. Every single day of the year, we should be thinking about our environment. And as you know, the theme for this year is only one planet. We only have one Earth. We are not thinking of going to another planet. So we need to ensure that the Earth we have, we keep it in a way that is good for not only ourselves, but for generations to come.
Right. And I'm sure that definitely as we move into that celebration, there are a number of issues, as you are pointing out, that would have to roll out as a country to show up government's Green Ghana agenda. What are some of the priorities that we should be considering?
Well, one of our priorities, if we look at the theme, you know, there are three overarching things. We are looking at global warming. We are looking at, you know, when there's global warming, we also think of our habitats. Right. A lot of the habitats are disappearing, which means that a lot of endangered species, both plants and animals, are dying. We're also looking at pollution, air pollution, pollution of our waters and pollution of our land. Right. So what it says is that we need to be really focused. Mm-hmm. One example is our forests. Okay. For example, our forests are our lungs. When we are thinking of pollution, we want clean air. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the trees have a role to play. Right. So it doesn't make any sense to be losing our forests. Mm-hmm. We don't have just Achimota Forest. We have so many other forests.
But it appears that the Achimota Forest is just being subject to... Yes, it's under siege,
and that is why I brought it in.
Okay.
We can't, on the one hand, be having Green Ghana 10 June and be planting trees, and on the other hand, be declassifying part of the forest. There's a reason why Achimota was made a forest reserve. That need has not gone away. Achimota is supposed to be the lungs of Accra. So why in the world would you be cutting off a portion of your lungs? Does that make any sense? If part of the forest is degraded, what you need to do is to plant trees and restore it. It doesn't make any sense so far as eco-conscious citizens or other citizens can see by declassifying part of the forest and reducing the forest when we have already lost over 80% of our forests.
All across the country?
Yes.
So it means if we talk about Ghana right now, our green cover is receding.
It's receding. We've lost about 80%. If you look at the forests we had when the Gold Coast became Ghana, if you look at the forests we had, our forest reserves, we find out that our forest reserves, we're losing them. And not just our forest reserves, our farmlands. Recently, the Nungwa farms, we are being told that the Ministry of, sorry, not the Ministry of Lands, but rather Forestry Commission.
Okay.
I'm getting all muddled up. Right. But what I'm trying to say is that Nungwa farms are going to be taken over.
That's the indication.
That's the indication, supposedly to make it more productive. I use the word supposedly. So we need to watch what is actually going on, because we can see the siege on lands all over, whether it's our forest lands, our parks, our green spaces, our Ramsar sites, whatever it is, we seem to be losing them in favor of development. And let's use the word development cautiously, because it is not development to get rid of your green spaces and replace them with concrete. That is not development.
If you look at Accra, for instance, there's this perennial problem of flooding.
Right.
And part of it is being attributed to, I mean, the depletion of our forest cover as well.
Absolutely, because forests have so many roles to play. We talked about the air. It also helps us have cooler air, so it's not so hot. It also absorbs some of the water. So if you don't have your forest absorbing the water, you're building helter-skelter everywhere, your drains are blocked, what's going to happen? If you look at even the building regulations, it tells us a plot of land, how much you can build on, because you're supposed to leave some of the land for greenery and some of it for the rain to soak the excess water. But if you go and build everywhere whilst the building authorities look idly by, we do have a problem.
I'm sure that we have enough regulations to check that, but
See, the government, our problem has never been regulations.
Okay.
Our problem has been enforcement, enforcement. Regulations are there galore. We have enough regulations to make sure that there's sanity. Unfortunately, the regulations are not adhered to. And sometimes we actually remove some of the regulations. If we go back to Achimota Forest,
okay, for instance,
you are actually declassifying it.
Yeah.
So when in their wisdom, the whole area was made a protected forest reserve precisely because of what the forest does, and you have decided to declassify it by taking parts out. What exactly are we talking about? You look at Awula Forest Reserve.
That's another key area to be on the lookout
yes,
for.
I'm one of the plaintiffs in the case that is in court right now. In fact, today was the court date, but it was adjourned because the judge was indisposed. You have Awula Forest Reserve. We've been told that apart from being the source of water to 5 million Ghanaians, it also has endangered animal and plant species. When we're talking about World Environment Day, one of the themes are the habitats. As the habitats are destroyed, we lose the endangered species. There are some endangered species which are only found in West Africa, I believe Ivory Coast and Ghana. Some of them are at Awula Forest Reserve. So why on earth would you go and mine bauxite there when you know, you've been told of the consequences of mining bauxite there? We're not against mining. Well, we're against destroying our environment.
And just before you walked in, we heard of the report of government's agenda to push through one student.
Hey guys, my name is Osas and I'm here because Ikoko has invited me here to pick one out of the two men that will be wooing me today. Young men! Oh.
1-3 policy. That's the indication we're getting. So one student will be advised to or encouraged at least to plant a tree. Okay. Is it the case that, given what's happening in the Tiwa Forest and Achimota Forest, all of the efforts that are being made by government is being thwarted by giving out this place for development and all of that?
Well, you see, what I would say is that you really need to know why you are doing what you are doing. It's fantastic. I think in the Philippines, you had the one student, one tree. It has had fantastic results. But you see, if you look at those countries, they don't just do things for sound bites or anything like that. They actually committed. And commitment shows in various ways. In my view, you can't be 100% committed if you are, on one hand, bringing out these laudable policies, but on the other hand, supervising the destruction of our forests. So I'm not convinced. I'll be convinced when we decide not to declassify Achimota Forest, where we start restoring the parts of the forest that have been destroyed. I'll be convinced when we get an undertaking that we will not mine bauxite at Awula Forest. I'll be convinced when the other forest reserves we have, we begin to say that we're going to stop the encroachments, bulldoze any buildings which are not supposed to be there are there, and begin to protect our forests for generations unborn apart from ourselves. Otherwise, I see these as gimmicks.
But anytime the issue about protecting our environment comes up, the focus almost always is on the greenery. But there are more concerns, even for instance, about noise pollution.
Well, there's so many concerns. I mean, we know, for example, one of the, what shall I say, a growing concern is noise pollution. We had International Day of Awareness regarding noise pollution. We know that noise damages our health. It damages our health. And yet, we are bombarded with noise. It could start with the morning call for worship, a dawn preacher, event centers, the bola taxis, drinking spots, and the laws are there. And you know, the three agencies have something to do with noise pollution. You have the EPA, you have the local assemblies, and you have the police, because it's a criminal offense, but nothing is done about it. And we are, what shall I say, we are damaging our health by the constant influx of noise. It's just damaging our health. So what we need to do is take a step back and ask ourselves, are we really concerned about the environment? Because the noise doesn't just damage our health, it also affects the animal life. It also affects them. And of course, when we're talking about the environment, we're also talking about our waters, which have been, what shall I say, have been
damaged. In fact, I think just a couple of days ago, or was it yesterday or so, we received a Water Commission report indicating how, of course, illegal mining activities are polluting river bodies and to the displeasure of even our neighboring countries as well. So it appears that increasingly it's not just about the greenery, but also our
basically they're all
interconnected.
Interconnected. They're all interconnected.
Right.
And the theme is also interconnected. The reason why they said one word, because what you do locally has international effects. So you're not just damaging, let's say, part of Accra or part of Ghana. Yeah. You're damaging other parts, because our neighbors are complaining. The waters flow. They don't just stay stagnant in one place. So yes, the water is very important. We are damaging our waters through galamsey, and sometimes even the legal mining. They've got permits. That doesn't mean that they are disposing of everything as they should.
So what you're stressing now is that at times you may be doing it lawfully, and yet you're causing...
Or let me put it this way, you may have a permit that authorizes you to mine. But the permit doesn't allow you to get rid of your waste as you deem fit. There are specified ways in which you get rid of your waste. But when nobody is monitoring, people do what they like. So the fact that they've got a permit does not necessarily mean that everything they're doing is according to the processes they are supposed to follow. And like I said, we have all the laws in Ghana, but what we lack is enforcement. We lack monitoring. So if you're not monitoring, how do you know what they are doing? How do you know how they are disposing of their waste products? Which is sometimes going into our waters. And now we have also pollution of the land. Because you see, when you begin to just dispose of your waste anyhow, what do you think is happening to the crops we are growing? Very soon, we will not be able to import crops when they turn around and say that, your whatever it is we want to export is contaminated, we don't want it. So we need to really be very, very careful about what we are doing to our environment, whether to our waters, whether to our forests, or even air pollution, because
Okay, so for policy intervention, what should be that first starting point where we're supposed to take off from to know that yes, we're on track in protecting our environment?
Well, for me, the first thing is to stop declassifying Achimota Forest. Stop considering mining bauxite in Achimota Forest. They've already done some exploratory work, which has caused significant damage. And if it's bauxite you want, there's bauxite in other areas. So you don't need to go and destroy pristine Achimota Forest. It's just not on. And then we need to be serious about the things we do. I mean, just as an aside, planting trees and not ensuring that the trees are protected and leaving the goats to eat them is not particularly helpful. So for the first thing for me, stop declassifying, revoke the EI, and no declassification of Achimota Forest. It's a no-no, so far as we're concerned. That shows some commitment. Because as I'm saying, it's difficult to see our commitment to the environment, our commitment to celebrating, only one earth. When with one hand we are saying, yes, we're going to do this and that, and the next hand we are supervising destruction.
And at the global level, obviously, the coalition is not just targeting Ghana. So at the global level, how can stakeholders collaborate with CSOs and other relevant agencies to achieve that purpose that we're all looking for?
Well, I mean, we all have to come to the realization that, apart from those who want to go to the moon, but those of us who want to stay on planet Earth, we need to do something about it. So everybody, not just in Ghana, all over the world, we need to look at the way we live. And we need to look at the waste we produce. And it's multifaceted. We need to look, for example, you and I, we need to look at making sure that we don't use plastics, because we are looking for a ban on single-use plastics. If you look at all around Ghana, you'd see that the gutters are choked with plastics and so on and so forth. So, for example, in the UK, one step that has been taken is that you now pay for plastic bags. Before the supermarkets, you got the plastic bag free. Now you can buy what they call the bag for life. When it gets used, you can have it replaced. And that has led to a significant drop in plastic bags. In countries like Kenya and I believe Tanzania, they have actually banned single-use plastics.
And there's that big question as to whether or not we should be moving towards that point of completely banning plastics.
I mean, there's no reason why we shouldn't ban plastics. If you look at when our grandfathers, in fact, we need to go back and look at how our ancestors lived. They were more intelligent and wise than we give them credit for. all the things that we find scientific names for, they were doing it. And we didn't have all this global warming. They understood the importance of the forest. That's why they had all sorts of stories to keep people from destroying the forest.
Right.
You know, they say there's a deity there. If you do this, this and this will happen to you. And people, by and large, kept to it. So we need to go back to how our ancestors lived. And if you notice, they didn't use plastic bags. Plastic bags are relatively new.
Okay.
So we need to say no and find alternatives. For example, we used to go shopping with baskets.
Okay.
Right now, even kinky, I see kinky, there's I mean, it's just not on. And it's also affecting our health. All these plastics, wrapping the warm kinky in plastics, what exactly do we think that is going inside?
Hey, do you want to relocate to Canada? I know a lot of people want to relocate to Canada, but the real problem right now is that most
the food we're about to eat.
But if you look at the demand drive now, are we able to completely wean ourselves off plastics?
You can do. How did Kenya manage it? How did Tanzania manage it? Where there's a will, there's a way. If we decide to ban it, we don't really need the plastics. Ghanaians are so creative. We would find alternatives. I know in other countries, whether Singapore, they actually use banana leaves and plantain leaves. There's a person in Ghana who is using plantain leaves, so I'm not quite sure, or is it corn husks, to make paper bags. And this is a waste product which would be, you know, what shall I say, just a waste product, but she has turned it into something useful. So I think that if we say that from 1st January, plastic bags will be banned, you'd be surprised that would even forget that there was a time when we thought wrongly that we're dependent on plastic bags.
And you know, plastics are contributing to this whole issue about our inability to manage flooding and also wastes in our communities as well.
Sure.
I mean, is it the case that once we deal with the plastic side, the general issue of waste management will be solved?
It will be reduced. It wouldn't be solved completely, but it will be greatly reduced. But what we have to understand is that we need to manage behavior. If it's not plastics, if it's something else people are dumping into gutters, and if you don't have storm drains or whatever, you're still going to have problems. So you come back to square one. You have so many homes, and you ask yourselves, how is your rubbish disposed of?
Right.
In sensible countries, you know, every home, the authority comes around weekly or whatever, it collects your rubbish. It's only in countries like Ghana where you yourself source whoever is collecting your rubbish. And some people, the gutters are there, the way where they dump their rubbish. So you need to do an audit. Come to every single home and business and ask them, where do you dispose of your rubbish? You can't show me receipts of where you go to. We'll get somebody and you pay them. Once you're paying for rubbish disposal, there's no advantage in using the gutter because you're paying for the rubbish to be disposed of. People also burn. And when you're in residential areas and you're burning, you know, they burn plastics, everything, contributing to the air pollution. More people are getting asthma, not only because of the burning, because of where we site petrol stations. I mean, everything is so chaotic. One of the things I'm saying is that maybe we should move the capital from Accra to maybe Kintampo and go and plan a proper green city where you have solar lights, we harvest rainwater, you have spaces which are zones, proper zones.
But that's quite extreme, isn't it? Calling for the national capital
our capital
to be...
was Cape Coast.
Okay.
Our capital hasn't always been Accra. Nigeria managed to move their commercial capital from Lagos to Abuja.
Absolutely.
If we do it properly, it can be very well managed. Go to a place, and this time plan it properly. Where it's a residential area, let it be a residential area. If it's a commercial area, let it be a commercial area. Make sure that every house has harvesting of rainwater. Because right now...
How soon do you feel we need to relocate our national capital?
For me, yesterday, because all this, pressure on prime lands. Remember that we led the campaign against parks and gardens being used to go and build a multi-story office building. I mean, really, who would want to turn a park into a multi-story office building? All the pressure on prime lands is also because, in a sense, Accra is choked. So for me, the time has come to move the capital from Accra. Kintampo is the center of Accra. I'm not saying it has to be Kintampo. Find another place, but this time learn from the lessons of Accra and have a properly planned city. On paper, Accra is well planned, but we have not gone according to the plan. We are building where we like, whether it's a Ramsar site, whether it's a green belt. So long as I find the space, I build. And for most Ghanaians, or let me not say most Ghanaians, for some Ghanaians, forests and greenery are like weeds. They are only there because I'm not ready to build my house. Once I'm ready to build an apartment block, we just get rid of them. And this is something that is not standing us in good stead. We really, really need to consider. So my message is that if we are really serious about the environment, it's not a question of a few gimmicks. Oh, today is World Environment Day. We all jump up and down. Dignitaries do this and that. Green Ghana dignitaries are seen planting trees that the goats might be munching on soon after because we don't protect them. Let's be really serious and do what needs to be done. Revoke this executive instrument. It's not helping anybody. If a family or the original owners of the land have not been compensated, that's an entirely different matter. Justice must be done, do so. But returning part of our lands is not the way to deal with the problem.
We need to go. We're all looking out for that big day during the weekend. What's your expectation on the World Environment Day?
Well, my expectation is that, well, what I would like is that all take part, but it's not only when the cameras are there, but for the rest of the year. And more importantly, when we plant trees, make sure they are protected and not left for the goats to munch on. And more importantly, I'm appealing to our policymakers to be truly committed to the environment and have a proper commitment not to further destroy our forest reserves. We've lost enough of our forests. We need to restore our forests, not on one hand be planting trees, on the other hand be declassifying a whole tract of land.
Awula Serwah, I'm grateful that you've been able to join us. Well, back to our June 3 twin disaster story, and we see many of you sharing your current situation as it